When he took her hand, the world seemed to stop. The sound of the ocean waves, the gentle rustle of the trees, the quiet murmur of the guests, all of it faded into a soft hum in the background. All that mattered in that moment was the warmth of his palm against hers, the way his thumb brushed ever so lightly over her skin, as if he was memorizing this touch for a lifetime. Lee Min-ho stood tall, yet his eyes betrayed the softness he tried to hold in. Across from him, Kim Go-eun's gaze held the kind of unspoken emotion that could unravel even the steadiest heart. Their wedding day was not the grand, glittering spectacle that the world might have expected. There were no screaming fans, no flashing paparazzi cameras, no grand hotel ballroom decked out in gold. Instead, they had chosen a place that felt like them, quiet, private, tucked away from curious eyes. A secluded coastal garden in Jeju, where the sea breeze carried the faint scent of salt and wildflowers, and where the horizon stretched endlessly, much like the promise they were making to each other. The ceremony was intimate, with only close family and a few trusted friends in attendance. Each seat was adorned with delicate white roses and sprigs of baby's breath, a nod to Go-eun's simple but timeless style. Min-ho had been the one to suggest the location months ago, but it was Go-eun who insisted on the flowers, the soft ivory tones, and the absence of anything too flashy. This day wasn't about the world, it was about them. As he reached for her hand, Min-ho's mind flashed back to the first time they'd met on set years ago. He remembered how she had laughed, not a polite, rehearsed laugh, but one that reached her eyes and made her shoulders relax. He had found himself looking for that laugh every day after. Go-eun, in turn, remembered how he had always been slightly different when they were off-camera. Quieter, more observant, but always kind. She had felt safe around him, in a way she couldn't quite explain back then. Their journey to this day had been anything but straightforward. There were rumors, denials, moments of distance when work kept them apart. But through it all, there were also late-night phone calls, stolen moments in hidden corners of the city, and the occasional candid photograph that sent their fans into a frenzy. And now here they were, standing side by side, their fingers intertwined as the officiant began to speak. The words floated into the air like gentle ripples in still water. Promises of love, loyalty, and partnership, phrases that had been spoken countless times before but never with this much meaning. Min-ho's eyes never left hers. He had always been good with words, but today he felt the weight of them more than ever. When it was his turn to speak, his voice was steady, but there was an unmistakable warmth in it. "Go-eun-ah," he began, using the familiar form of her name that only those closest to her heard. "You are the most unexpected and beautiful part of my life. I didn't plan for this. I didn't expect to find someone who could understand me without words, who could calm me just by standing near, who could make me want to be better in every way. But you did. You walked into my life and suddenly everything made sense. I promised to protect you, to listen to you, to make you laugh when you forget how, and to love you for every day we're given." Go-eun blinked quickly, trying to hold back tears. She had always been strong, able to keep her emotions in check, but his words found their way past every defense she had. When it was her turn, her voice trembled, but not from fear. "Min-ho-sasai," she began softly. "From the beginning, you've been someone I could trust, even before I knew I could love you. You see parts of me that others don't, and you've never asked me to be anything but myself. You've stood by me when it was easy and when it wasn't, and you've never let go, even when I didn't know how to hold on. I promise to share every joy with you, to face every challenge beside you, and to keep choosing you, over and over, for the rest of my life." The officiant's voice rose again, inviting them to seal their vows. Min-ho stepped closer, his hands still wrapped around hers, and leaned in. Their kiss was soft, not the dramatic kind you'd see in a drama, but one filled with familiarity, safety, and the quiet thrill of knowing this was forever. Around them, applause and quiet sniffles mingled in the air. The sea breeze caught the edge of Go-eun's veil, lifting it gently like a whispered blessing. The reception was held under a canopy of fairy lights strung between the trees. Long wooden tables were set with white linens, candles, and simple floral arrangements. The food was a mix of their favorites, comforting Korean dishes, a few French-inspired plates, and a dessert table that Go-eun had personally requested. They sat side by side, occasionally leaning in to whisper to each other, their hands never far apart. Friends and family took turns standing up to speak, some telling light-hearted stories from their dating days, others offering heartfelt wishes for their future. One of Minho's oldest friends joked about how impossible it had been to get him to commit to plans before he met Go-eun, and how now he was the first one to show up for anything she organized. Go-eun's closest friend recalled the way she used to smile differently after certain phone calls, a smile that even back then gave everything away. As the night went on, Minho pulled her onto the small dance floor. There was no choreographed routine, no performance, just the two of them swaying gently to a soft melody. His hand rested on her back, her head against his shoulder. They didn't need to speak. The rhythm of their movements said enough. At one point, Minho leaned down to murmur something only she could hear. She laughed quietly, looking up at him with that same laugh that had caught his attention years ago. The song ended, but they stayed close for a moment longer, reluctant to let go. Later, as the guests began to leave and the night grew quieter, they stole away to the edge of the garden where the sea was visible under the moonlight. Minho slipped his jacket over her shoulders, even though the air was only mildly cool. "It's our first night as husband and wife," he said softly. Go-eun smiled, looking out at the horizon. "It still doesn't feel real." "It will," he replied, squeezing her hand. "Every day it will feel more and more like the only thing that ever made sense." They stood there for a while, listening to the waves, the fairy lights behind them casting a warm glow over the garden. In the distance, laughter from their friends floated through the air, but here, in this small space between them, everything was quiet and still. That night, long after the last guest had gone, they found themselves sitting on the porch of the small villa they had rented for the weekend. Go-eun's hair was loose now, her makeup gone, replaced with the simplicity that Minho had always loved most. They talked about the day, the little moments they'd remember, the tiny things that had gone wrong but no one noticed, and the way it had felt to see each other at the end of the aisle. "When you took my hand," she said softly, "it felt like everything stopped." Minho smiled. "That's because it did. At least for me." And in that quiet, with the sea still whispering in the distance, they knew that this was only the beginning. The world would return soon enough. There would be work public,